evening, everybody. Welcome to the Let's Talk It Out podcast. I'm your host, Alec, aka Trey Busy. I want to go ahead. First of all, I want to go ahead and give a little bit of a warning. A lot of people have been messaging me or saying something about the show has been a little bit too heavy lately, or saying that it's a little bit, they need a warning ahead of time. Let's Talk It Out is predicated on being a real life conversation between two people. It's late night talk on mental health and other issues that people don't really want to talk about. So with that being said, sometimes the show is going to be heavy and there's going to be some conversation that makes people uncomfortable. That's the whole purpose of it. Being uncomfortable forces change in your life. So I need people to be uncomfortable by the things we talk about, because it's going to force you to change things about your life that need to be changed. But before I go too much further into that, I wanted to thank Ricky Layfield for coming in last week. He was a great guest. He did a great interview. It's a great thing he's doing for those inner city boys and the connections he's making with them, and letting them know that they have a positive role model in their life that cares about them. That's very, very important that he's doing that. So, hey everybody to the chat room coming in. What's going on, everybody? So before I go too much further, I would like to say that I'm not alone tonight. I have a very, very, very special guest tonight. She decided to take time out of her busy life to come have a conversation with me on Let's Talk It Out. I would like to welcome Megan GIbson to the conversation.
Hi, guys.
Hey, Megan, how are you doing today?
Good. How are you?
I am blessed. And I am thankful to be able to sit here and have this conversation with you. I understand that because in Chicago's been raining the last 4 days, and you're out in Oklahoma. I'm assuming that the weather there has been a little tricky for you as well.
It's been crazy. We're right in the middle of Tornado Alley and more, and we're in a state of emergency, and there's flash flooding everywhere. It's just been pretty wild.
Oklahoma, man. Yeah, I do hear that. That's the tornado central. So.
Yep, and we're moving into tornado season this month, so it's definitely not my favorite time of year, that's for sure.
So I have CB Fan in the chat room says hello, welcome Megan, and my mom B Lift Show says hello Megan, welcome to the conversation.
Hi Mom.
Yeah, so I mean we just want to just welcome you in, make you feel comfortable. EJ4312 says welcome Megan. My little sister Anna says hi Megan. Everybody saying hi to you. Nobody say hi to me. Ain't that a bitch? No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. You guys don't have to say hi to me. That's fine. So I asked Megan to come on to Let's Talk It Out a while ago. I feel like, sometimes I'm drawn towards people by, I'll read a little bit about what they post or, read their bio. And just something. Sometimes I have a good knack for telling who would be a good person to have a conversation with, or who would be a good person to come share their information on the show. So everybody's rolling their eyes at me now. No, it's fine, guys. Don't worry about it. So with that being said, I want you to tell people a little bit about yourself, Megan, before I go too much further.
Sure. So obviously I'm Megan. I am from New Jersey originally, actually, but my husband's military, so I moved to Oklahoma when I was 19. Since then, we've been all over the place. I went to Oklahoma, went to Alaska, went to Japan, was in Japan 3 years. Now we're back in Oklahoma. Life's been crazy. We have 3 little girls. Really wanted a boy. That just didn't work out for us. And I'm a full-time health and fitness coach virtually, which has been awesome. I'm also a certified personal trainer, and I struggle with PTSD and borderline personality disorder.
So I'm gonna go back a little bit. So New Jersey.
Yes.
Married, 3 kids. Currently living in Oklahoma. You have lived in Japan. How long were you in Japan?
About 3 years.
About 3 years. Did you pick up on any of the language?
A little bit. Like, I can say hi and thank you.
Hi and thank you. So I've always wanted to travel to Japan, man, just to check it out, the video games and all that good stuff. But so you said, getting a little bit more serious here. CB Fan is actually just trying to steal my thunder with his question. He says, what is borderline personality disorder? Now, I was gonna say, I want you to elaborate a little bit further on that. Like, tell me a little bit about when you were diagnosed and what kind of, treatment were you recommended by the doctor. Just give me a little bit of a background to that.
Sure. So, borderline personality disorder, I was diagnosed with that about 2 years ago. And so I'm a rape survivor. And borderline is something that usually the risk factor for that is some kind of abuse. And borderline is just like a disorder where you're kind of unstable. You have a lot of mood swings. You are very impulsive. You have a higher, like a really high actually, risk of suicide. You have a lot of suicide ideations, and you have that disassociative factor. And I struggle with all of it. And it was really scary to have that kind of diagnosis put on me right away, because there's I think the statistic is about 10% of people with borderline disorder either attempt suicide or actually go on to commit suicide, and that was really eye-opening to me and terrifying all at the same time.
Well, I'm very, very, very grateful that you are here with us today, um, and able to have this conversation, because I know suicide is hard for a lot of people when they get to that point mentally where they feel like that's on their mind, and it's actually something that they're really considering. You know, now there has been a stigma with a lot of people just saying like they post stuff about it online for attention, but sometimes it's not for attention. Sometimes they feel like that's the only way that they can make a cry for help, because people that they know immediately aren't really willing to give them a hand to help them out with that.
Right.
So, I mean, let's see. Gladys says, "Oh shit, that's intense. Excuse my language."
Yeah.
Brittany said, "I'm sorry you went through that type of trauma, Megan." Yeah, I mean, very grateful that you are here with us today and able to have this conversation tonight. So Gladys asks, "How are you dealing with that?"
Um, it's been a struggle, and I've always kind of struggled with it since my first trauma. I was actually raped twice, but I'll get into my story in a little bit. But after the first time, I it really brought it out in me, especially because I was going through that like adolescent teenage phase, and that's kind of when borderline triggers in people. And you'll get to hear how I struggled really bad. But up to 2 years ago, even was I think the peak of everything. 2 years ago, my life was kind of shifting and falling apart, and getting through the day just on a regular basis was a struggle for me. Even with my kids, even with a good marriage, it really kind of showed its teeth then.
What exactly happened 2 years ago?
2 years ago, I was just kind of coming up on this the anniversary mark of my first trauma, of my first rape. And it was hitting that like 15-year mark. And I don't know why I got this number in my head, but I kept saying to myself, like, 15 years is the deadline, 15 years, I have 15 years to report my rapist. And so, or not 15, sorry, 10. I'm not 30 yet. So I kept saying 10 years, 10 years, I have to report him within this 10-year deadline. But in New Jersey, there's actually no statute of limitations, and you can report your rape anytime. Like, you could walk in 30 years from the trauma, you can walk in 80 years from the trauma, you have the chance to report it. But I didn't know that, and so when I was approaching that 10-year mark, I started to freak out a little bit, and it was just in the forefront of my mind every single day. And I think just having that there, the emotions that I was feeling, I was like seeing my rapist's face everywhere. I was thinking about him constantly. I couldn't even close my eyes. Like, he was just very present in my life during that time. And so I went back to therapy, and that's when I got my diagnosis. That's when we talked about everything, and my therapist actually encouraged me and actually walked me over to the center where I could report him finally.
Well, I mean, sometimes it's best is just to face these issues that we like to avoid. Um, I'm just going through the chat room. Everybody's encouraging you. CB fan says Megan is a strong woman to be able to talk it out. I also suppose that you are very brave. My mama said it's intense trauma. She said you are a survivor. So
I appreciate it all. I really do.
yeah, I mean, for you to be able to go through that not just once but twice and still be able to be open enough to just have the conversation. A lot of times people are afraid to talk about it. They're afraid to open up about it because they feel like that no one will be able to relate to them, or nobody actually cares. And that's what Let's Talk It Out is built upon. It's built upon me creating a community for everybody to come and have conversation with each other and open up to each other and accept each other for our flaws or things that happen to us.
Absolutely. And I'm so thankful that you have this platform and this channel to be able to, for me to come and talk about these things. Because I feel the exact same way as far as like being open and sharing your story, because it's really hard to talk about these things, but I think it's really important because there's people out there that are struggling. And I always make it an effort and make it a point to be transparent, because someone out there is going through the same exact thing that I went through. And I want them to know that there's light at the end of the tunnel and that you're going to be okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Gladys says, how do you feel now that you reported it?
Man, it's been weird. In the beginning, it felt really good. It felt really good to go and talk about it, but it made it real. It's been something that I buried under the rug for so long that when I officially reported it, I had to kind of live it again. And it was funny because I had a victim advocate with me. I didn't want to go alone. And I just remember looking at my victim advocate's face like halfway through the interview with the investigators. And I just remember feeling sorry for her and like bad for her that she had to hear my story, because I could just see it on her face. Like, I was comfortable talking about it because I've lived with it now for 10 years. But seeing someone else listen to my story, it kind of hit home for me to be like, wow, like, yeah, I lived through that. And wow, it was a really, really, really messed up situation. And it was just weird for me to be able to say it and then see that kind of reaction, because I've buried it so deep that I don't even necessarily feel that pain anymore.
So, I mean, I was a little bit taken back a couple minutes ago when you first started talking about it. That's why I was a little hesitant when I was talking, because, I mean, it is very heavy and it's a very traumatic, experience for someone to go through. And I can't imagine the amount of strength that it would take for somebody to be able to just, even to come sit down with total strangers and have the conversation about it. My mom says borderline personality disorder is strongly connected to PST. The effects of the trauma cause a disconnect and difficulties in relating to others.
Yes.
Yeah,
100%.
She actually sounds like she knows what she's talking about. No, I'm kidding. Don't throw nothing at me. So you said right now, because you are into fitness. I just want to ask, like you said, you do online training?
Yeah. So I'm partnered with this company, Beachbody. I'm sure you've heard of it, like Insanity and Insanity Max 30 and Shanti and all of that good stuff. But I use them as a platform, like as my bus, and I help train people through their programs. And it's just been so rewarding for me and so fulfilling to be able to help people find their happiness, help people find that self-love, and not just change physically, because for me it was so much more than physical. I've lost 50 pounds with them, but the mental transformation has been the biggest shift ever.
Yeah, I need to go ahead and highlight some of the programs, man. I'm trying to tone up a little bit. Come see about that. So I just wanted to ask. I mean, the chat room is still they're going on. They want to say, EJ4312 says, who helps you with your children when you are experiencing symptoms of PTSD or bipolar personality disorder? Or borderline?
Yeah, borderline.
Borderline.
My husband totally is helpful. He it took a little bit of time, and our marriage definitely suffered a little bit while we tried to figure out what exactly was going on. I mean, he knew of my trauma, but we never really dug deep into it until I want to say like 3 years ago. He didn't even hear about my first story. The second trauma, we were married already, so he lived that. But being there by my side throughout everything, he's been my biggest support system, and the whole mental plethora of issues that I do have, he is just he's just such a blessing because he really gets it, he understands, and he's so forgiving and patient with me because he does understand like the symptoms and what I'm going through deep down.
It's amazing when you find the person that God wants to be in your life, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, you wouldn't even expect for someone to be able to be as understanding as they are and be there for you like they are, to help you get through things that, that you feel like you can't get through, but they step for step with you along the whole way. So
Absolutely. And the other great thing is I'm human and I do snap at my children, and borderline and PTSD, they have those big mood shifts, and I have like raised my voice at them at times, and I do get to sit down with them after and just apologize to them and tell them where I'm coming from, and we have such a good open relationship talking about that kind of stuff too.
I mean, you're answering questions before I even have the opportunity to ask you from the chat room. The chat room, it's almost like you're in tune with them because they're asking questions, but you're answering them in real time. Like the question will pop up, and then you'll start talking about the answer. It's weird. It's almost like I don't even need to be here.
That's funny.
No, so EJ4312 says, so glad you have a supportive husband. B. Live Show says, Megan, you are brave to share your story, have a support group, and doing positive reinforcement to help you overcome. Sounds like you're a very caring person and appears to find delight in helping others. I pray should she mirror the same for self-care and self-love, knowing God loves you. Gladys says, I'm so glad that you have him to support you exactly how you need him to. That's definitely amazing.
Yeah, he's 1 in a million for sure.
Yeah, that's... So, you say your husband's in the military.
Yes.
What branch?
He's in the Air Force.
Air Force, okay. He's currently not, is he active right now, or?
Yeah, he's active. He just goes to work every day, and sometimes he'll go TDY, and deployments, unfortunately, they're a thing. But it's not super, super hard. It's kind of something I've grown accustomed to at this point. We've been married 9 years almost, so it's became normal to me.
Yeah, deployments can be tough. I'm sure, what, 6-month deployments?
3 to 6.
3 to 6.
It kind of depends.
Okay. Yeah, that's, I can't imagine. Everybody saying, thank him for his service. I mean, again, for somebody to be, in your life and be a support of you like that and take care of the family. And I know it's hard to be gone away from you guys for 3 to 6 months, your 3 kids. What are their ages?
I have a 7, a 5, and a 3. Almost. Well, she's almost 4. She'll be 4 in August.
Yeah, it sounds like you have your hands full at home.
Oh, always.
So, yeah, he probably be chasing you around. That's probably a good way of you getting your exercise. They're chasing them around.
Yeah, and that's why I'm in the car with you guys right now, because I was just too scared. They're in bed, but I was just like, I'm not risking it. Okay.
Yeah, you don't want them to make noise. I mean, granted, I could probably edit it out, but it's fine. You being proactive. I very much appreciate that. You're making my life easier. Sure. So I want to ask you, Megan, just getting a little bit more serious. Do you have a history of mental health problems, like as far as like with your family? Is like your mom or somebody or your dad, dealt with anxiety or some sort of depression or PTSD before?
Not that I'm aware of. I know, I think my mom has had like spells of depression, but she's never had any kind of like diagnosis or anything. It's more of just the normal blues that people experience. I'm not so sure about my dad. I did grow up in a single parent household. I do have a relationship with my dad, but it's definitely not anything big, if that makes sense. But as far as I know, no.
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of times, like, it's these things are being found out to be something that's in your gene pool or something that can be passed on to you genetically. Which is when I first found that out, I found that can be kind of strange. But then, as I had conversations with my parents, asked them about things in their life, and they just opened up and they let me know, like, times where they dealt with anxiety and stuff like that. There's times where they dealt with the depression, traumatic experiences that they've went through, and it is passed down to you like that because those feelings are implanted in their brain. They're passed on to you when you're born.
I do know that my family has struggled with addiction um, to alcohol, and that's impulsive, right? So there might be a little bit of strain of borderline. I'm not sure which side it comes from. I know that borderline is genetic. I think we're finding that out. I think that's newer research. But obviously, the risk factors are some form of abuse too.
So, I mean, you feel like you're battling alcoholism?
Um, I I feel like I went through that a little bit, and it definitely showed its teeth more 2 years ago, because when I was kind of in that really dark place, I was binge drinking almost every weekend. I was not showing up as a wife. I was not showing up as a parent. It's almost like I was so dissociative, like I was on a different planet. I just didn't want to be here anymore. And it was really scary because, like, when I laid down at night, I love my kids. I obviously love my husband. I love my family. I have a great family. But I just didn't know how to cope anymore. I didn't know how to take life anymore.
You were using alcohol as an escape, pretty much, as a way
Yeah,
for you to remove yourself from what's going on around you and your feelings that you had about life at that time.
yeah, alcohol and just a bad group of friends. Like, I always had trouble making great friends because a lot of my trust was destroyed, and being around people that were not so great people made me feel better about myself.
Well, now you have a bunch of friends now in the Let's Talk It Out community, so you don't have to worry about trying to find friends that are good. No, but in all seriousness, though, how, like, when did you first realize that the drinking was a problem? Like, because I've had conversations with people, and they they having a hard time figuring out if they are drinking to the point where it's an issue. They be like, oh, well, I don't take shots, so it's not a problem. Or, oh, I don't drink every day, so it's not a problem. I'm like,
Yeah.
you guys really don't understand what alcoholism is if that's what you think it is. If you think alcoholism is just you waking up and taking the shots before you get out of bed, no, there's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah, I was cutting corners in the sense that I wasn't being completely truthful with my husband while I was going through all that. I would say I'd be home at a certain time and wouldn't come home until hours later. And this was in Japan. So in Japan, they have these restrictions, and active duty military can't be off base after 12 a.m. Like, they have a curfew. So I would stay out past curfew as a spouse, and he couldn't even come and find me. And I was coming home like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. And, you know, what kind of wife shows up at 6 o'clock in the morning when she has kids and responsibilities? And on top of that, I would black out. I would drink to the point of blacking out. And for those of you listening, my definition of blacking out is you're conscious. Your body is alert, it's moving, it's talking, it's doing things, and you don't even recall any of it, and you don't really have control of any of it. So I was blacking out, I was coming in late, and I was lying to go out. I would say I'm going to my friend's house. I was going to sleep over my friend's house, and or I'd just go to her house and hang out with her, and I would park the car down the road and get a taxi to the bar. And I knew it was a problem because of all those things, but I kind of denied it for a long time. But I knew it was a serious problem when my mom started asking questions, and my husband we were in the lawyer's office talking about divorce at some point because it was out of control.
It's not when alcoholism does develop like that. It's not just an overnight thing. It's like a slow snowball effect, right? It's something that you didn't just wake up one day and be like, you know what, I'm just gonna go drink and then just stay out till 6 a.m. It slowly but surely gets there, and that's why we try to explain to people. I mean, I've attended AA meetings before, and I know most of those conversations. Like these people, they don't just wake up one day and just do that. It's slowly but surely develops into that. It's not just it's like a snowball. That's the perfect way to describe it. It's like a small snowball. You push it down the hill, and it slowly but surely gets bigger. So
right.
Thank God that you were able to recognize that and do something about that before, even that could cost you your life in the long run, and not just your actual life, like, your existence, but also things that you care about,
Yeah.
And, you could, like you said, there was actually conversation about divorce going on. So thank God for that, right? That you were able to figure that out and resolve that issue. So I wanted to go ahead and read a little bit more from the chat room. So EJ1412 says, we truly appreciate your realness, Megan. Brittany says, I was the same way. I used alcohol to escape my traumatic experiences. Thank you so much for sharing, Megan. EJ says, Megan, I hope you sharing on the show is helping you as much as helping the listening audience. And CB fan says, incredible truth. Thank you, Megan. Yeah, you
always keep it real, right?
Always
keeping it real.
Always. That's the whole purpose of the show. Let's talk it out. I want you guys, I asked the guests to come on, and I don't want any filters. I want you to go ahead and keep it as real as possible. Tell it exactly like how it comes to your mind, because that's what people need to hear.
Yeah, for sure.
That's exactly what people need to hear. So I want to ask you, are you currently seeing a therapist right now?
I am not, actually. I haven't seen a therapist since I moved from Japan to Oklahoma. And honestly, I should be. And I'm not here to tell you that things just magically resolve, because they don't. I definitely have down days and even weeks, because PTSD and borderline is kind of debilitating like that. But I have been using my workouts and my nutrition as my primary source of therapy and just feeling my body right. And also being able to communicate how I'm feeling, when I'm feeling it, to my husband and my support of community that I have.
So the whole purpose of me asking that, it was actually a trick question. I was just trying to see if you were seeing one, but I always tell the chat room, we have discussions with people before in the past, like therapy is so important. Like even when people think that they don't need a therapist, those are the people that need it the most. Granted, you said, you just moved here from Japan, so it's like, God forbid, I'm not sure how big of a city you live in Oklahoma, but I'm pretty sure, it might be a little bit more difficult to find a therapist that you can connect to. Not every therapist is not the same. That's a huge thing that people understand, that some therapists you're not going to connect with, you're not going to feel as open with. You have to find someone who's perfect for you. So I'm grateful that I live in a city that's the third biggest city inside the United States. I could, find a therapist was not difficult at all in Chicago. I'm not sure.
Sorry. And here's another problem with that is people don't like having borderline personality disorder clients. From what I've heard, we're hard to handle. We're emotionally draining. And it seems like a lot of the time we are kind of cut off. Like we don't listen as well. We're kind of unreachable a lot of the time. We decide what's best for us, and nothing anyone can say is going to get to us. So it's really hard to find someone who specializes in borderline personality disorder. And I personally am not comfortable with female therapists. So that's been a struggle for me as well. Not a lot of men around here deal with borderline and are accepting clients. And it's been a while since I looked into them, but the last time I checked, they were not available to me.
Well, first of all, I don't think you seem that difficult to talk to. I've been talking to you for about 30 minutes. It ain't been that hard. No, I'm kidding. But I do understand though, like, you know, sometimes you could be a little. Some people could be agitated when they're talking about certain things and reluctant to talk about it. Man, I got some huge messages in the chat room, man. I need to read these. These are some big messages. So, P. Lift Show says, Megan, do you think your alcoholism was self-medicating from the BPD? And if the effects of alcohol and not realizing it was caused from your borderline personality disorder, a swing blade effect, or seesaw?
It very well could have been. It was more of a self-medicate to forget my trauma. But I think that it kind of, those are two really hard mental health disorders to have. And I think putting them together could have definitely been the cause of that, for sure.
Definitely. XOXO Vibe says, therapy is amazing. Highly recommended. If you just have to go through as many as it takes to find the right one, you have to be open enough to let them reach you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, CB Fan says, wow, all caps. He's talking about the therapist that refused borderline personality disorder patients. He's like, just wow. Yeah. I mean, I'd had no idea that was a thing, that they refused to talk to certain people because of borderline personality disorder. I had no idea about that. And you just taught me something. Granted, like I said, I mean, we've been talking for over 30 minutes. I haven't had any issues with you. I don't see how someone who's a paid professional can.
I think it's just hard because it's hard to help us because we just get so wrapped up in one thought in one way. We're very black and white, and we also flip really quickly. There's this thing, I don't even know what it's called, but it's something that's happened in my friendships my whole entire life. Oh, it's called splitting. That's what it's called. So I've always introduced myself to people like, when I'm meeting new people, first I say, I'm shy. It takes me a while to warm up, but once I warm up, you can't get me to stop talking. The second thing I say is that I'm the type of friend that can be your best friend for like 2 months, and then I'll disappear, and you'll think that you did something wrong, but you didn't do anything wrong. It's just how I am. And when I got diagnosed with borderline, I realized that that's splitting. That's when you go from black to white. You really, really love something and you love someone and you're like almost addicted to them. And then you switch on a dime in an instant to the opposite and you start hating them. You start being annoyed by them. It's really hard to explain that to people, especially people that you really care about. And it's been really, really difficult in relationships that I've had throughout my life.
So have you ever caught yourself like doing that type of switch thing like with your husband? Like, has there been times where it's been like rockier inside the mirrors because of that?
Definitely. And we address it. He doesn't really call it out right at the instant, but there'll be times where I'll just like pick fights with him for no reason, or I'll just act crazy. Like, that's just the way we call it. I'll act crazy and then I have to come back to it later and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Like, I totally flipped out on you, and we can laugh about it. But it took us a long time to get there.
So when will be the most recent time that you've caught yourself doing this? Like, give me an example most recently.
Man, I don't know. It's been a while. We have like a pretty good thing going right now.
So that's great that you've it's been a while. Like the times that it's happened is growing apart more. Gladys says that, oh man, that sounds like me flipping out. The whole black and white thing. Yeah, I mean, sometimes I just chop when people, because I've had customers I've dealt with that did the same type of thing. Like, they just flipped out, or they seemed like they was upset about something. I always chop it up as someone's just having a bad day, and most 9 times out of 10, something else, they were upset about something else. Like something else in their life is bothering them, and when I don't react like the way they most of the time they do apologize to me. It's like, like, I like to apologize. I just had this going on, and that's the case. I mean, sometimes these people are upset about something that's just going on in their life that they've been trying to hold back and not talk about with other people, and it just comes out on you. It comes out on somebody who doesn't deserve it.
Yeah.
So, also says very difficult disorder can be confused for PMS as well. Be sure it's not hormonal. The,
Yeah, it's 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 fun, and it mostly displays itself with friends. I joke around with my husband and I say the reason that we're together is because I don't split on him as much. And I've had a few like really, really good friends who I've never really experienced that with. It's usually with the people that there is some sort of potential distrust, where I will have them. It's like it's really crazy thoughts. So you'll be friends with them for um, a few weeks, right? And the whole time you're like, this is great. Like, I trust them. This is fun. We're having great time together. And then all of a sudden you get it in your mind that you can't trust them and that they're going to hurt you, or they're going to talk behind your back, or they only hang out with you because they feel bad for you. And you just start all this negative talk. And that's what the whole switch is. And that's what the whole flipping is. And that's why I don't necessarily experience it with the people that I love, like love, like family, because I trust them full heartedly.
Yeah, that's CB Fan asked a great question. He said, does moving help or hurt the disorder?
Ooh, that's a really good question.
That's what I said.
Because, okay, so I moved a bunch of times. I'm from New Jersey, and then I moved to Maryland when I was 16. So literally, like right after I was raped, I ended up having to move. And it was nice to be able to create this new identity and like leave the past behind me. So in that sense of being able to like just drop your baggage where it is and move on and start over, that's been amazing. But the hard part is finding those new relationships. I've been in Oklahoma for a year, and I don't have any like amazing relationships, if that makes sense. I have a lot of really good relationships, but not anything that's like best friend level or anything where I've been super connected with people. So I do reach out to my online community a lot. Like I work with very closely with my team of coaches, and they're like family to me. And that's where I find my friendships. And it also helps that trust factor, because there's no way someone states away is going to hurt me, you know? So moving is great for starting over. But as far as like relationship building and figuring all that out again, that's really difficult. And then also all the stress that comes with moving.
There you go. There you go again, answering the questions in the chat room as they pop up. Uh, so you answered one, Glass. It's like, outside your family, do you have any friends that you're close to? And you saying you prefer to become closer with people that are outside the states, like you said, your coaches, because you feel like they're not going to hurt you.
Yeah. So um, I have like one best friend. I've had a lot of like really like ones and twos best friends here and there. And I've honestly, and I said this on my social media a few times, but I've single-handedly destroyed my relationships with people. And it's because I either flip out and say something like a dagger. I've always honed my daggers really, really well, sharpened them really well, and I know how to hit people where it hurts. And that's great for my protection of my like mental protection, but it's very harmful to the people that I love the most. And that has been a serious struggle that I've had, and I've broken a lot of my friendships because of it. So I've had one really great friendship from the time I was 17. We're completely different people. And she states away, she's in Maryland. But if aside from that, I don't have any like best friends aside from my family. And then my coach, my team.
Yeah, I just I'm reading the comments. XOXO vibes. She wants to know, what are some of the ways you manage your quote split unquote situations.
Being honest with people, that's something that's been really new. So since moving to Oklahoma and like knowing and understanding splitting, and really knowing that that's a thing and that I'm not just weird, if that makes sense, because my whole life I'm just like, I don't understand why I do this, but it's something that I do. I'm sorry. But now that I know that it's the borderline, now that I know that this is a real symptom, it's been so much easier to talk about. So when I make friends with people, I'm usually really quick to tell them, like, look, I have borderline, and if I go missing for like a month or two, know that it's not your fault. And I pretty much tell them to just let me go. I will be back.
So yeah, sometimes I mean you pull yourself. And another thing I would like to, me personally, before I go back to the chat room, is like, do you like pull yourself away from certain situations if you think you have a chance of being hurt?
I either pull myself away when it feels like I could potentially get hurt, or if it's just going too well. I'm a huge self sabotager. I've self sabotaged everything. That's why I've ruined my friendships. And that's why I've not been so successful with weight loss in the past. That's why, with healing and trying to work on my trauma, I've had so many setbacks. I will deliberately go and like look up my abusers online and read their content. And I do it because I get to a point where it's just uncomfortable to be happy. But I've been working on that for since I started my fitness journey 2 years ago when I was in that dark hole. My fitness journey is what dug me out of it. And since I started that, I was doing personal development. I've learned that I have such strength, and this has really taught me that. And if I have the strength to build my body and lose the memories, lose the scars, lose the fat that's kind of weighed me down, just like the trauma and just like all the anchors in my life, and like letting them loose and moving on, through all that, it's been so incredible. It's been so incredible. So I totally lost my train of thought. What was the question?
Well, I first of all I want to say the fact that you're able to acknowledge that you are a self sabotager. That's a very huge step.
Yes, that was okay.
Um, you have to. I'm glad that you are working towards it. I mean, um, you pretty much if you're self sabotage, it's basically like you're mentally cutting yourself with a razor. Like you're mentally
Yeah.
stopping yourself from being happy. You want to remove yourself from situations because you feel like they're going too well. uh not to sound too preachy, but sometimes in life you just deserve sometimes you deserve good things to happen to you. You know, you deserve to be happy. You deserve to have whatever's going on with you feel good. You know, everything doesn't have to be sad because just because you've been through a few things, and granted, not just you, Megan, but people in general. Um, People go through things and they think just because they've been through some things, that's what they deserve. That's what their life has to be. Like, no, that's not the case. The reason why you went through those things is because, I'm a big believer in, um, you don't go through. You're not forced to go through any battle. God doesn't give you any battle unless He knows that you can win it. So you went through those things because He knew that you were able to overcome them, right?
I'm a total believer in that. And that's where I was going. So I'm in a place now where I can accept happiness. I'm in a place now where I can live in that and celebrate that. And I do every single day. But it didn't happen overnight. It definitely didn't happen overnight. Because I, prior to all of this and like building my self love muscle and learning who I am, that was my life. So anytime anything was going good, I'd kind of stab it and bring it back to where it's not, because I felt undeserving. I felt that I didn't deserve love. I felt like I didn't deserve um, that freedom.
Well, judging by the conversation we've had tonight and judging by the chat room, we can all sit here and agree that we do feel like that you do deserve to be happy. You do deserve that freedom. I mean, you just the fact that you were able to overcome these things. I mean, everybody has been praising you all night long in the chat room, all night long. CB fan said you are a very brave young woman. Kudos to Megan. Um, B. Lifshore said it's great you have an awareness and have tried to apply coping skills in relationships. Your life has been difficult, and you are taking the steps necessary to live towards a functional life. Self-sabotage is a defense mechanism from the PTSD. You need therapy to retrain the mind, perception, and be more self-accepting. Which is, again, that's why I go back to what I said earlier about, that's why I asked you, like, are you seeing a therapist? Because I make suggestions for people all the time, just to, even if you think you don't need one, and granted, you do know that therapy is very important, but just try to look around and see if you see somebody. I mean, Oklahoma is not a, It's not really. How far are you from OKC?
Oh, not far at all.
Yeah, that's a city, I guess, for the most part. I always joke around with people. I say there's nothing in Oklahoma but like oil, and steak, probably. Just saying.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to going back to therapy at all. I do think it is something that I need, and it is something that needs to be ongoing. And I really want to try like DBT, and some other things that I've read have been really helpful for PTSD and borderline.
As long as you're open to trying new things, I mean that's what it's about. Um, just reading the chat room. B. Lipso said you're brave, Megan. We are rooting for you. Um, Megan, looking forward to you connecting with a great male therapist specializing in BDP to continue on your journey of success. Someone said I'm dropping gems tonight. I'm not dropping gems. Come on, I'm just having a conversation. CB fan says great show, Alec, and they said Megan, you rock with an exclamation point. Thank you both. So at this point in time, we're at the 46-minute mark. I was going to ahead and ask you, Megan, do you have any closing remarks you want to tell anybody? Any last anecdotes that you would like to share with the chat room?
I could talk to you guys all day. I could get on my soapbox and preach to you guys all night. But I guess all I want to say is don't be too hard on yourself. I was way too hard on myself for years. That's victim mentality though. And I weighed myself down over and over again. In all that we were saying before, like, you all deserve happiness. You all deserve joy. You all deserve love. You all deserve to find your purpose and your strength. And no matter how ugly and how stormy your life gets, there will always be a sunrise. There will always, always be a sunrise. And if you don't have anything to look forward to that. Wake up early, like literally, wake up early, go sit by your window and watch the sun come up, because that is something that will never end, and you can always count on that.
That's amazing to leave the chat room with. They are just saying, Brittany says, thanks for sharing your story. Megan, you are awesome. Continue being strong. Gladys says, I've definitely been enjoying tonight's show. Thank you, Megan, for sharing your story with us. You're awesome. EJ4312 says, Megan research EMDR and therapists who are trained at high success rate for PTSD. So I mean, the chat room is giving you footnotes as well as you helping them out. XO Vibe says, positive vibes to you, girl. Be happy. Thanks for all your good advice, and likewise. My mom says, God bless you, Megan, your family, your endeavors, and your freedom to be the real you.
Thank you, guys.
And again, I want to personally thank you for taking time out of your busy life to come have this conversation with me. It's been very enlightening and, I mean, very, very informative. This doesn't have to be your last time coming onto the show. You know that, right? This doesn't have to be a one-time thing.
I would gladly come back and chat with you guys. It was fun.
It was fun, and the chat room very, very much appreciates your story. Everybody loves you. The chat room loves you. I didn't get that 1 ounce of praise, but that's okay. I don't deserve any praise. I didn't do anything. Brittany Williams says, I joined in late today, but I thoroughly enjoyed tonight's show. Yeah, thank you guys for joining in. Thank you guys for listening. Again, Megan, one last time, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy life as a mother of 3, to come have this conversation with me. I can't even thank you enough, because this has been amazing having this conversation.
I appreciate it so much. And just thank you again for just doing what you do and giving people a voice and a platform to speak on, because it's so important. You and I have a very similar mindset of getting this kind of information out there to the people who need it most, and I love finding people like that.
Now they want to start giving me praise. Talking about some thank you for the host. You have the best guests. Come on, you guys are too much. It's all the guests. I just don't do nothing but just listen to them talk like you guys. So I look forward to talking to you guys again next week. Thank you for listening in, chat room. You guys have a great week, and like I said, I'll catch you guys next week.